December 4th, 2019 meeting of the North Carolina State Board of Education. I'm Eric Davis, Chair of the Board, and I call this meeting to order. You know, this time of year, we're reminded of the many blessings that we've received, and I hope each of you had the opportunity to spend time with your family over Thanksgiving and share remembrance of those blessings. You know, one of the things that members of this board are most thankful for is the excellent team of advisors that we have, students, teachers, principals, superintendents, and local board members. And in our January meeting, our next local board advisor and Dingman Award winner will be joining this board. Mr. Monte Herring, Vice Chair of the Columbus County Board of Education, and so we look forward to welcoming Mr. Herring in January. Board members, you've seen the agenda for over a week and had the opportunity to review it. I ask if there are any requests for changes to the agenda, and if not, I request a motion for approval.
Move approval.
Motion by Ms. White. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hall. Dr. Townsend Smith, can you call the roll to capture the vote?
Yes, sir. Mr. Buxton?
Yes.
Dr. Oxendine?
Yes.
Ms. Camnitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Dr. Tipton Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yes.
Mr. Chastain?
Yes.
Vice Chair Duncan?
Yes.
Chair Davis?
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. We'll now proceed directly to our committee meetings, and we'll begin with the Educator Standards and Practice Committee, and I'll turn to the committee's chair, Dr. Oxendine.
Thank you, Chair Davis. I am Olivia Oxendine, and I chair the Educator Standards and Practice Committee, and joining me in that responsibility is Ms. Amy White. First of all, I have a change in my seat today. When I arrived, I couldn't quite figure it out. So I kind of like this spot. I can do stairs to my left and right. So with that said, we have a new business item, the first item on the agenda, and this is the educator preparation. It's in the form of an update, and I will call on Dr. Tomberlin. He's coming forward to give us this information. Thank you, Dr. Tomberlin, and welcome.
Good morning, board members. So I am happy to present to you today some updates on the educator prep programs across the state of North Carolina. In some ways, this is a response to things that were presented in October about how we measure program quality across the state, and I just wanted to make sure the board had clarification on how we measure some things relative to EPP performance. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about is the productivity of our ed prep programs. So this is a look at the cohort years across from 2014 to 2018 in terms of how teachers are prepared through what we call the traditional route, which is the ed prep programs as part of the undergraduate degree. There's one would have clinical experiences, and then a clinical internship or student teaching as part of that, and then the alternative route, which is considered to be lateral entry. Now, I want to be clear about the alternative route. These are numbers from those who seek a lateral entry through formal relationship with a particular EPP. These do not include our teachers who go through what was known as the RAUC, the Regional Assistance Licensing Center. So these are just numbers from our EPPs. And as you can see, I've kind of shown you the output of the EPPs in terms of relative to the 2014 cohort year. So all those numbers are percentage difference based on the 2014 school year or the cohort year. So in 2015, we saw a slight bump of about 10.5% in the number of teachers that were coming out of our ed prep programs, all the way down to 2018, where we see we're down to 4,500, which represents almost an 11% decline. I think what's really telling here is there are some bumps from year to year, but in the end, it's kind of a wash between the productivity from 2014 to 2018. So there's some rises and falls across that time, but in the end, it looks like we're down about a percentage point or two in their traditional preparation. Now, if we compare that with folks going through the alternative route, the lateral entry route, or what will become the residency route, there you're seeing a dramatic increase in the number of people choosing that pathway. So I guess in summary, what I want folks to know is that the pipeline in terms of our NC ed preparation, we know that the enrollments are down somewhat, but it does seem like there is some stability in that pipeline from our ed prep programs. And what's really important about this that I can't emphasize enough is the data tell us that these teachers that are prepared by our North Carolina ed prep programs are the most effective and the most persistent teachers. They stay in the profession longer and they perform higher than those prepared through other routes. And so we definitely want to keep an eye on this and support our EPPs in continuing to produce these high quality teaching candidates. Another issue that came up in the presentation from October was the method by which we calculate pass rates for our teachers on the licensure exams. So I think it was presented that some states use a methodology where they only count the pass rates of program completers. And in those states, one defines a program completer as someone who's finished a program and passed the test. And so you could see, if that's how you define a program completer, that there are many states across the country that have 100% pass rates on their licensure exam. I only count you if you pass the test, then my pass rate by definition is 100%. So I wanted to let you know that North Carolina does not calculate pass rates that way, and that the pass rates from 2014 to 2018 show that we in fact do have a percentage of our teachers who are not successful in passing their licensure exams. So if you go back to 2014, in this year, No Child Left Behind was still in effect. A teacher could not enter the classroom without having passed the test before employment. And so you can see there we had a 96% pass rate on our licensure exams. 2015, you see a decline in that to 92%. 2016 is where the attempt in the first, pass in the second provision comes into play. And you can see from 2016 to 2018, what I would suppose is the impact of that decision to allow teachers multiple years to pass the test. You're seeing a decline in the initial pass rates. These are all pass rates at the end of that fiscal year in which the teacher completed their prep program. So there are going to be more teachers coming out who do not pass the test, but go ahead and are employed in a North Carolina school, and therefore they're going to show up on those initial pass rates as failures. And that's almost at 20% for the 2018 school year. Now, I've talked to the board before about this is not really an accurate way to measure the pass rate. If we are going to give those teachers the opportunity to forego passing the test until 2 or 3 years after they complete their programs, then we should measure their pass rates as a cohort and look at the pass rates at the end of that 3-year term in order to better understand, were those teachers prepared to pass that test? And so that's what we'll be doing moving forward. So hopefully that will put those pass rates, as we start doing that, those pass rates will come back into a line with a 90-some% pass rate across the state. So I'd like to pause there and take any questions if anyone has any questions about that, because I know that could maybe a little confusing.
Dr. Tomberlin, would you consider from 2016 to 18 under the two pass columns, the count percent, would you consider that statistically significant?
I would say yes, and I would even go more importantly, rather than statistical significance, I think that's practically significant. To go from 96% pass rates to 80%, something's happening there. I don't know. I would not. My first guess at what's happening is not a serious and rapid decline in the quality of our ed prep programs across the state. I don't think that's the case at all. I think what we're seeing here is about the percentage of people who enter the teaching profession who are procrastinators versus who are somebody who likes to get the difficult things done up front. So I think about 20% of our teaching force probably says, if I can wait for 3 years, I'm going to wait for 3 years. And about 80% of our teachers say, I have a difficult thing in front of me, I'm going to go ahead and take care of that up front and get that done.
So it's probably a good thing, or maybe that's the wrong term to use, adjective to use. I know that more and more EPPs are thinking about requiring the candidate to take the test before they complete their programs as the first try.
Now, I think, and this is something that's come up in some discussions around licensure exams in general, is it does give us the opportunity to look at, it gives us a very unique opportunity to look at, does passing the licensure exam up front, is that more or less predictive of effectiveness of a teacher? And so this has created for us what we call a natural experiment. We have the opportunity to use this, to leverage this, to understand what is our licensure exam doing for us in terms of identifying effective teachers. And I think that's not an opportunity we should let pass without investigation.
Other questions, Mr. Buxton?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just want to expand on that. So it doesn't go without notice, I think, that our NAEP scores and our EOG scores have been fairly flat, if not declining in some places, over this same time period. Do we know anything about value-added EVOS scores of folks who don't pass immediately? Or are you saying that's what we need to go back and take a look at?
So I can tell you some initial analyses, not to the depth that I would prefer to do this, indicate that there is no difference between a teacher who passes the test initially and those who pass later on. There's no difference. There's no significant difference between their effectiveness.
Because my concern as a parent would be that if I take a content test, not as a parent, if a prospective teacher takes a content test in his or her senior year and does not pass, there is time for that preparation program to attend to the content deficiencies that that teacher has before he or she enters the classroom to teach my child. But if we're waiting to the third year, and we've got a number of people who may go a while before they get to a point that we would be comfortable with them trying to grow my child. And so that's why the data that you're talking about seems to be pretty important.
I do, but we're talking about perception here. So if I as a parent know that my teacher hasn't passed their content licensure exam, is any amount of data going to convince me that that teacher's okay for my student? I just don't think that's a feeling that I don't think data is going to help us overcome.
So let me say it as a policymaker. As a policymaker,
That's a better.
if I've got people who are not entering the profession with the requisite content knowledge that we've sent out, that makes me uncomfortable that then we're sending them to the vagaries of a professional development system, which we know is not particularly effective. And so it is a place where they have a university or other program. We do have a mechanism to provide them extra support to get, whether it's the pedagogical or the content knowledge support they need before they enter a classroom and are responsible 25, 28 kids. That's my question about it. Is that what this is telling us? That in fact, we've got many more people going in not as adequately prepared as we would want them to be.
So I would say the problem I'm having is equating not having passed the content licensure exam with adequately prepared. I don't think that I can make that jump. It is clear we are sending more teachers into the classroom who have not passed their content licensure exam than we ever have in the past. And that is a significant number of teachers that are experiencing that. Whether that means they're not as well prepared or not, I don't think I have the evidence to support that. But before, what I was talking about is could we use data to persuade a parent that this teacher is as well qualified as a teacher who's already passed the licensure exam? I don't think so.
Point taken.
Okay, Ms. White, definitely.
So, lots of ingredients in a cake. And, this is probably most concerning to me because I know that teacher vacancies occur most in low wealth districts with the lowest performing schools. Those are the hardest teaching seats to fill. So it gives me great pause that we would be putting educators in those seats who are not equipped to adequately help those students grow and perform at the rate that they should. And so why is it that what is the motivating factor for us putting teachers in seats who are not qualified or equipped to teach adequately? And I heard you when you said there might not be a correlation, but to quote you, you said, we're putting more teachers in seats than we ever had before. Is it teacher vacancy? Is it teachers who are leaving the profession for another? Or is it just the fact that we don't have high-quality candidates going into the teaching profession? If you've spent 4 years at a university, I know there are other pathways to teaching, but if you've spent 4 years at a university in an EPP program and you can't pass the content test and the pedagogy test at the end of things, then we have a problem. And it's showing up in our test scores.
Would you like me to respond
Sure.
to that? Okay. So, I do understand what you're saying, but I think so please know that I'm channeling the voice of the LEAs that would be responding. Aren't those teachers who have been through an ed prep program and have not passed the test better than the long-term sub that we're prepared to put in those classrooms because we have no one else? I think that's a fair and legitimate argument. I don't have data. I mean, that's the argument that's the pushback I get under any of these licensure policies that we put forward. Is the counterfactual is that I'm going to have to hire somebody as a full-time sub for the year because I can't find the person who's met all the requirements of licensure. I don't have good data on how often that's happening, but I will tell you that is the dialogue that you'll hear coming back from the LEAs. Now, my hope in this is that the residency model can become a model for how we deal with teachers who are not entering the classroom fully prepared. And the licensure exam is part of that full and complete preparation. If EPPs are now going to be on the hook to enter into agreements with LEAs about how they're going to support what used to be lateral entry, these alternative prepared teachers, there needs to be clear articulation that the EPP is going to do this and this and this to support those teachers. It seems to me that the LEAs would also require those EPPs to assist those teachers who are coming in without having passed the content or the pedagogy exams, that we would leverage that relationship to support these folks and make sure that the reason they're not passing the test is because they're procrastinators and not because they're not well prepared. A procrastinator in the classroom I think is different than a teacher who is not prepared to teach the content. And as much as we can ensure that we're getting more of the former and not the latter, then I think the better off all our students are going to be.
And Mr. Duncan has a question, and then we will bring this phase of the discussion to closure. Mr. Duncan.
Good morning, Dr. Tomlin. Ms. White eloquently put forth a cake mixture, which I'm not capable of doing. I'm only good for grilled cheese. So I've just got a little more straightforward comparison. I'm looking at the numbers on 2015, 16, 17 of people who took the test, and we go for 5,600 at 15 down to 5,100 16, 5,100 17, and 4,400 in 18. can you, is that truly a trend, or is there something that there's a blip, or can you give us some context on what that means, if you would?
So I would look back to this one, the productivity. So we're seeing relative stability in how many completers that North Carolina Ed Prep programs are producing. But here you're seeing these are the people that are seeking licensure or have been granted licensure and are under the requirement to pass that test.
Actually, the first slide caused me to ask this question, because if you look at 18, there's a pretty big dip from the years before on the first slide too. So I'm trying to figure out, is this a one-year blip, or are we looking at
So that's
something
why
broader?
I did the percentage difference based totally on the 2014 cohort. You can see that there's some waxing and waning in the enrollment. So we started out with a 10% bump, and we ended that window with a 10% decline, or almost 11% decline. It's hard for me to say whether we're experiencing a trend here, or just the vagaries of every year there's a different number of people that come in, and these are kind of within range fluctuations in enrollment. My sense from the field and from talking with Ed Prep program providers is that there is a general decline in the enrollment in our Ed Prep programs. So I would say yes, there's declination, but how large is that? And is it systematically going down to the point where our pipeline is severely damaged?
Well, if you look at from 15 to 18, it's gone down 1,100 students from our EPP providers, and that strikes me as systematically concerning. That's basically a 20% dip over a 4-year period. And so I don't know if there's some reversal in terms of enrollment that we could expect something different, or if we still look at a dip. That's a very serious issue if we continue to drop at 20% every 4 years, or roughly 5% a year on average.
I think it is a concern, and I think what we're seeing in the licensing data is that where the big three contributors to the pipeline are our North Carolina Ed Prep programs, lateral entry, which will now be residency, and out-of-state teachers. And before, traditional preparation accounted for about a third of that pathway. Now it's down to about a quarter, with lateral taking over as a third of our teachers are coming out of the alternative pathway system. So it's clear that the decline is occurring in terms of enrollment and output for our traditionally prepared teachers.
If I could ask one last question.
Absolutely.
Does the data not reflect that our EPP completers have their long-term results in terms of student achievement are exceed the results of our alternative completers?
Yes.
Based on the data you've given us previously.
Yes. So if we look at a 5-year kind of cohort analysis, North Carolina EPP completers are by and large more effective than either out-of-state teachers or alternatively prepared teachers. There's no question about that. Strongest performance, only rivaled by TFA. But of course that has its own implications of short-term persistence. In terms of a 5-year window of employment, after 5 years, the average EPP prepared teacher, 70% of those are still in the classroom. For lateral entry and out of state, it's below 50%. So it's a serious issue, and one of our hopes is that the residency model will truly be transformative in the way it approaches the support of what alternatively certified teachers. Why are those teachers leaving at such high rates? Can the EPPs assist in building them up and keeping them in the profession and making them more effective as their traditionally prepared counterparts. Because as that pipeline starts to increase, the residency license pipeline is now the largest. We shouldn't call it alternative anymore. That is the new traditional pathway. If we're not supporting that to the level that we're supporting our traditionally prepared folks, then we're going to have a serious problem.
And, of course, one final question.
Thank you, Dr. Oxendine,
You're
for squeezing
welcome.
me in. Dr. Tomberlin, the second slide, or the next slide that you just put up, from 2014 to 2018, there's a 4% incremental decline in passage rates that is consistent over that 5-year period. And there does not seem to be a reduction in that increment from, for example, 16 to 17, 17 to 18.
So
You
it's going
probably
down.
know where I'm going
Yeah.
with this. At that current trend, is there any reason to believe that we have sort of hit bottom, or 5 years from now, will we have a 60% passage rate if current conditions that have created this reduction don't change? And then my second follow-up is that 19.8% of teachers that aren't licensed that are going into classrooms,
They are licensed. They haven't passed the test.
haven't passed the test, sorry, that haven't passed the test. Do we have hard data to Ms. White's question about what school systems they're teaching in by Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3? I'd be curious to know if we know where they ultimately land. Where are they getting hired would be a question. Do we have that hard data?
I don't right now. I could get that data if I'm hearing that the board would be interested in knowing.
I'm just an advisor.
Very good, thank you. And you can continue, Dr. Tomberlin.
Thank you. So I apologize for the background on this. I didn't realize that I was masking the data. But one of the criticisms of North Carolina is that we don't disaggregate our licensure pass rates by ethnicity. And so just so the board is aware, that requirement came in statute just this past summer, and we are actively working on doing that for our EPPs and for our program completers. This is a quick analysis of the last 5 years of the pass rates disaggregated by certain demographic types and different races or ethnicities. And as you can see, there is a discrepancy. There is disproportionality in the failure rates for our minority candidates over our white majority candidates. And so I think this will help us look at the 2019 data and how it's going to come out in the disaggregation. So we know, at least we're having some idea of whether this is a trend, what's going on, are we moving away from this? I don't have a ready explanation for this. I just know that it exists. And I'm kind of saddened that Mr. Ford is not here to, I know this would be particularly of interest to him and his conversations about equity, but it does not seem that our candidates of color are achieving at the same on the licensure exam as our white candidates. And I think a lot more investigation into the root causes of this are required before any kind of policy recommendation could come forward. But it's certainly something that we'll be seeing a lot more of. And just to let you know, you'll be seeing a lot more of that in the EPP dashboard that the department is in the process of creating. I think, as most of you know, this used to be housed at the UNC system, but it only include UNC system schools. DPI, it was legislation transferred the ownership of this dashboard over to DPI so that we could include all the ed prep programs, the private and independent colleges and universities, as well as the UNC system. So these are the measures that we will be collecting data on in the public-facing dashboard, and it will be disaggregated by race and ethnicity as well as gender. And then just a quick screenshot of some of the type of data you'll see from this. This is a breakdown of the ratings on the evaluation standards for a given EPP. So these are the kinds of data that you'll be able to just to pull up as board members or a member of the public to look at the quality of these of the candidates coming out of our different EPPs with a really robust disaggregation system in place.
Dr. Tomberlin, if you could go in reverse to the previous frame. I don't understand why, and maybe this is going to be added, this data point will be added to the to the dashboard, but it seems like Ed TPA data should be part of this, or the parallel to that, the PPAT. I guess that's correct.
So when I presented this
I'm
in our
sorry.
committee meeting last week, we had inadvertently left off the pass rates for licensure exams, and we would conclude content and pedagogy in that. So the content, of course, would be the Praxis or Pearson content test, and then the pedagogy would be the EdTPA or the PPAT, depending on what test the EPP used, and that will be reported on the dashboard and will be disaggregated by all the different race and ethnicity
And just if you could do
categories.
just a word or two about the EdTP, those two assessments, because they really capture performance at the student teaching point.
Yes. So I think most of you know that in addition to a content licensure exam, that's basically a standardized test of your knowledge of the content, teachers also now have to, as of September 1 of this year, are required to take and pass a test of pedagogy. In other words, do you know how to teach? And there is some content specificity around that test. So if you're math versus English versus science, elementary or high, but in general, it's more about adequate ways of teaching that are respectful of the development level of the child, and so those are more performance-based assessments rather than, and if you think of them more as in terms of the national board certification, the way we test for national board certification, it's more kind of in line with that. So a performance-based assessment and less about standardized multiple choice content exam. So those two things are coming together. Now, I think I can anticipate the question from the board is that pedagogy exam correlated with teacher effectiveness? And I don't know yet. We need a couple of years for us to be able to study that, and that certainly would have implications on some kind of policy of, do you have to, okay, you may be able to wait on the content, but you have to have the pedagogy up front in order to be licensed. So those are all interesting questions. As of right now, we interpret the law to extend to the pedagogy exam as well as the content exam. Teachers have 3 years to pass that. So teachers don't have to come out of the EPP having passed the pedagogy exam, but EPPs are working very hard to move the teachers through that during their student teaching experience so that they are prepared to come out. But again, they're not required to under the law.
Oh, continue?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can I ask,
Mr. Hall.
I'm hearing you. And I don't know, well, let me ask this question to you. With being do you have any data to support classroom management? We haven't talked about any of that yet. We talked about the teaching skills. We talked about delivery of the curriculum. What about classroom management? Do you have anything to support those teachers leaving at a greater percentage that you were talking about, Mr. Duncan? Do you have anything for that?
So whether the teacher, so I need you to clarify whether the teacher exhibits strong classroom management skills or whether there is strong expectation of student behavior in the schools in which they're placed.
The teacher management skills,
Okay.
where the rubber meets the road in the classroom?
Sure. So, I don't. My sense is that that is probably a subset of the pedagogy exam, and as we move forward, we may be able to make some connections between high performance in that area of general classroom management to student outcomes. But at this point, I have no hard data that says, and I have no way to measure that empirically. I don't know. I mean,
Teacher evaluation.
I don't have any data that says that teacher is great at classroom management and objective data to say that. I have a standard on the evaluation process, but I don't think that that would be useful for this particular.
And the other thing I need to say also, and no disrespect to anyone, but I heard you say something about it would be of interest to Mr. Ford. If he was here, it's interest to all of us.
Oh, certainly. I just know that he's. I understand. I apologize if I gave the impression that this was not of interest to any of you. I just know it's of special interest to him.
It's a special to me too.
I understand.
Thank you very much, and you may journey on.
So
Dr. Tomberlin.
the last thing I have for you today is an update on the support model for national accreditation. As you know, that we've entered into, the board has entered into an agreement with AQEP as another national accrediting body for our educator prep programs. And so one of the things that has led to for us in the Division of Educator Recruitment and Support is a realization that the work that our ed prep folks face right now is too large currently for what the level of support we're offering for the accreditation process. And so in an email, a memo that was sent out a couple weeks ago, we alerted the board and Pepsi and other stakeholders, as well as the field, that we were going to have to pull back somewhat on the face-to-face opportunities we're providing to our EPPs in terms of accreditation support. And so this is a breakdown of what the previous support looks like and what the support will be moving forward. And as you can see, these aspects, most of these, basically what we're doing is we're pulling back on the face-to-face and trying to find ways to more efficiently provide digital or online resources for our EPPs to use in their accreditation process. Of course, the department will continue to provide the EPPs with all the data they need for, excuse me, for the accreditation process. And but what we're finding ourselves unable to commit to is a full-time employee sitting physically in the room with the EPP during the site visits and during follow-ups or in preparation of the site visits, which is what we're pulling back from. And Dr. Oxendine asked if I would present the previous support and the new support for the board to be aware.
Thank you, Dr. Tomberlin, and I would be less than candid if I did not say to my fellow board members and others who are listening that I've shared my displeasure with Dr. Tomberlin and others on his staff about this reduction in support to EPPs in the area of accreditation. I don't see any, even though we may not have explicit policy around national accreditation that is pursued by some of our EPPs have it. They're in ongoing cycles of being accredited, and some are in the early stages of seeking it. And last month, no, not last month, 2 months ago, we spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, exhaustive work, exhaustive work, debating on bringing another national accreditor to the field, and we did that. It was a unanimous support of this board, and you know that it's AQEP. I'm sorry. Here we go again with the acronyms. I'll have to look it up. I will do so during break. EPPs are excited, our independents, and even I'm hearing even some of the UNC schools are excited about AQEP. So I'm concerned that and I get it, I understand how we are pinched for money, we need to save, we need to be concerned about efficiencies. But I'm telling you, it troubles me because when a EPP goes after a national accreditation, it's arduous, it's painstaking, it's hard, it's long, it's protracted, and I'm telling you, when they do self-examinations and they study themselves and think about improving the curricula for our teachers, it carries over in all aspects of quality, not just for national accreditation, but it shows up quality across the board. So I am concerned, I empathize with the fact that we may not have the money to do these things, but I want us to do our level best, folks, to find the resources to get someone back on board to provide support to our EPPs who care about national accreditation. And I'll open it up to anyone else who has a comment. Ms. Kamnitz.
Dr. Tomlin, what kind of reaction have you gotten from the field on this change?
So the only communication that, I've received communication from Dr. Oxendine that she's been getting some comments from the field. I'm not privy to the exact nature and number of those comments. I did get an email from the dean of one of the schools of education that was next on their accreditation on-site review, expressing some disappointment and displeasure in our decision because she feels that she's in a lurch now on preparing adequately for that visit in April. I've never been in a situation in state government where if we've had to take back a level of service or reduce a level of service that people have been overwhelmingly positive about that decision. That's never been my experience. But I do want to make sure everyone understands that this decision wasn't made just kind of spur of the moment. This was a discussion with leadership and an understanding of the increasing demands on the Ed Prep program. I think later, maybe tomorrow, Mr. Snyder will walk you through the rules associated with licensure and the Ed Prep process. Those rulemaking requirements fall squarely on the shoulders of our Ed Prep department. And so the rulemaking process is going to extend for a number of years. There's additional, we have a new accountability model for our EPPs. So this decision was made in light of the fact that there's a massive increase in the requirements, the statutory requirements for this division, and an understanding that this level of support to the EPPs is not required in legislation, nor is it required in any state board policy. And it was a difficult decision to make, but that's ultimately what led to that decision.
Mr. Buxton.
I want to be clear, I'm not directing this comment to you, and I would ask the question of the state superintendent were he in attendance, so I'll just direct it to my fellow board members. We passed a new policy around a new accreditation body that we offer support for. We have a new dashboard. We have a new accountability system. We have falling numbers of students achieving pass rates. We have a lot of conversation about this quality of supply in our schools. It would seem that if there were any time that Ed Prep and the capacity of this department to support Ed Prep were a priority, it would be this time. And so it's hard to see the email that was sent out and get a vacancy report with 44 positions that have no activity, and see no attempt to align personnel and fiscal resources behind priorities. And so I'm concerned that this was a conversation with leadership, because my hope would be that leadership would say, that is one area we cannot retrench in. This is a priority for this department, and we have to adequately resource your support of EPPs, your support of the people training the personnel teaching our kids. And so it's unclear to me why, with the potential, even if we've got to go over to OSBM and request that we can use some of these positions, whether temporarily or fully, at the very least, I guess this ought to show up in our budget request to increase capacity. But I would certainly be asking if I were the legislature or OSBM, why we're not trying to reallocate scarce resources against priorities, if this is in fact a priority.
And to the point about the budget and this season of the year, this time of the year to be thinking about items to add to the budget, this discussion that we're having is very opportune. I mean, the coming together of the discussion and budget making, I think, is happening at the right time. And Dr. Tomberlin, I hope that you and Superintendent Johnson will work hard to make sure that we have someone providing these services to the extent that we see in the previous support column. I understand what you're saying when you say we don't have the time nor the luxury to have someone sitting, but my sense is I don't know that the individual, that role is doing more than sitting. That role is working with answering technical questions, guiding, supporting, encouraging, feedback. How do you do it? How do we make it happen? So I don't want to be exhaustive anymore in the discussion. I will ask my colleagues if you have things to add.
Just
Chair
say it more
Davis.
directly. There's not another time and we need to more support our EPPs than now. The first part of this presentation showed the challenges that we face. We do not need to be cutting support to our EPPs. And so we reject the new support approach. We want the previous support back in place. The superintendent has adequate authority as a council of state member to reclassify positions and to use lap salary to provide the staff. And I don't argue with you that you do need more staff because our rulemaking work is suffering because of that. But we do not want to rob Peter to pay Paul and diminish the support that our EPPs need because we need them to produce high-quality teachers in greater numbers than they're producing today.
Thank you. Dr. Emery.
I did want to add that, I know I don't want to keep moving this along, but to the issue of vacancies and the prioritization of the work in this division, we spent a lot of time looking at that. I moved a position that reported directly to Dr. Petrie Martin when I came into this role into educator effectiveness, just because we knew the position became vacant and what the expectations were there. And I'm shaking a little bit because others of my division directors are sitting behind me and they're probably going, how did that happen? But I just wanted to reinforce the level of expectation through Ernst & Young outputs that we're trying to work on and all the conversation that we've had here in terms of even how do we better support where teachers land and the qualifications of them in our neediest schools and districts. So I just can't not say that, I was fully involved in this and supported it, even to the point of moving a position out of my office into educator effectiveness. And we still have the challenges of the work. So however we can do this, I also think engaging some conversation with the EPPs who also have resources. How do we join hands together to improve this process might also be worth our time and effort here. So, thank you.
Other comments? So Dr. Tomberlin, thank you so much for making this presentation and allowing us to chime in and share our concerns and our wishes. And we do, I will reiterate Chair Davis's statement that let's do all we can to provide support to the EPPs as they seek accreditation. Thank you very much. And we'll go on to the next item under ES&P, and that is we are looking at two action items. ES&P 1 is the approval of the Research Triangle Institute, the EPP program to initially authorize teachers in North Carolina, and coming forward to make that presentation is Dr. Tomberlin. I would say that you just find yourself a comfy spot up there. This is your morning.
So I know that time is always an issue for the board, so this policy came before you last month, and we had some extensive conversation about the policy recommendations. But it is coming back for action this month, and I am available to you all for any additional questions you might have around the revisions to LIC and 001 in order to comply with Senate Bill 219 and Senate Bill. I'm on the wrong item?
Yeah, you are. We're on ES&P 1. The
Oh, RTI.
authorization of the DPP, and it has something to do with the naming of the school.
Yes, the RTI application for the, to be recognized, initially authorized Ed Prep program was presented to you last month. We have received a statement from Dr. Angela Quick at RTI indicating that they will change the name so as not to conflict with the program out of the joint program from NC State and UNC, which I think is Pathways to Teaching or Pathways to Practice. One of them is, they're both pathways to either practice or teaching, and the RTI name will change. They don't have that name at this time, but they assure you before they begin practicing that they will change that name.
Very good. And board members, we will move forward and vote on, take action on this item tomorrow, knowing full well that they are going to come forward really soon with a revised name. And I think we may already have heard
We got a revised document.
a revised document has been received in the state board office. Okay, and then we'll move on unless you have questions about this particular item. If not, we'll move on to the second, ES&P 2.
And I think this is LIC in 001, and it changes to comply with Senate Bill 219 and Senate Bill 621. These were presented to you last month, and we had discussion related to that. I'm happy to take any questions, but I don't have anything new to present to board members at this time.
Questions, board members? Thank you, Dr. Tomville. And the last item under ES&P is an issues item, and it is my pleasure to welcome the Honorable Beverly Perdue. She is with us today. She is the founder of DigiLearn, which is an organization committed to classroom excellence using technology to bridge and narrow the achievement gaps in the performance of our students, especially in the economic distressed areas of North Carolina. The parts about DigiLearn that captured my attention as I read the material and became familiar with the material that's on eBoard are words like job-embedded professional development, outside support to teachers in the mastery of competencies, and feedback to teachers, which is ever so important. Sometimes that's the lost piece in professional and personal growth is the feedback. So without any further delay, I am going to say welcome
Thank you.
to the mic, and I'm going to allow you, if you would just go ahead and introduce your co-presenters, and then you can begin the presentation.
Thank you. I'll do just that in just a second. I'm delighted to be here. It's been a long time since I sat in those chairs, JB. A lot has changed and a lot has not changed. I want to tell you how important the work that you do really is. I don't believe when I sat here as Lieutenant Governor, I realized the import and the impact of the decisions that you make around this board table every month, and the exploration you do and the ability that you have to begin innovation and change. And so for that, I'm very grateful. I've seen a lot of good things come from this board. I'm also glad to be here today and representing DigiLearn. That's one of my new projects post-governorship, and it's about 12 years old now. I actually founded and hired our best, who has been my education soulmate for 25 years, to think about and how to develop a foundation developed around innovation and personalized learning. And that's how we got to know Dr. Oxidine and the work that you are leading for the state as well as the board. So the high-quality education for every student in North Carolina is the driver for this State Board of Education. And I thank you for taking on that essential role. We're pleased to be here. I've brought two rock stars with me. I'm not going to stand up here and preach, as I've been known to do. These are folks in the districts and in the classroom who are really making a difference. With me are Sally Schultz, the middle teacher there, the wonderful digital teacher. Sally, thank you for all that you do. She is very good at what she does, and she is very representative of what can happen across North Carolina if you choose to go down this path that we are trying to chart. And she is a digital scholar and a classroom teacher. With her is a terrific superintendent, Lynn Moody, superintendent of Rowan Salisbury Schools. I've been in their system. I've seen what's going on there. I urge you all to go. It's just amazing what can happen in North Carolina if you have leaders who are willing to take a risk and teachers who can carry out that risk-taking and achieve. With the two of them, again, is Myra Best, who is the executive director of DigiLearn. The goal today has three little pieces. I know that I like to know what I'm about to hear. We're going to give you a little tiny background about Digital Scholars, which is a product of the DigiLearn. We're going to provide some information about how we've come as a board, and it's a national board. If you've looked at the members of the DigiLearn board, it's really impressive. It doesn't have JB on it, but it has all the other national players. I think he was publicly employed at the time that we sought our board members out. So we're going to talk to you all about micro-credentials and how we arrived at the need to be here today and bring the State Board of Education into this conversation and into this work. We hope that you will join us. And I want you to know as we present that there are folks around the country who are talking about North Carolina and watching what we are doing around Digi and around micro-credentialing and the potential development of a state-certified or state-adopted credential. North Carolina's always been a leader. You think back to the work we've done over the years, from career and college promise to early colleges to the technology that we fully supplied for every classroom in the state, and the digital learning, among tremendous initiatives that have changed fundamentally the face of what we do. We talked with Chairman Davis and Vice Chairman Duncan and Superintendent Johnson a couple of months ago about the work of the digital scholars and the need for a micro-credential and how important it is for you all to join us. So we thought today you would be well served by spending 10 minutes with us to hear my part of the discussion and then to think about what the teachers and educational leaders can do. There's no one more important in a school and in a state, you know that, than the teacher. This morning I put my grandchildren on the school bus because their parents had parent-teacher conferences at 7:30 in the morning, adapting to the needs of the parents. I encourage that. And I was so caught up in listening to them tell me the difference between what a kindergartner does and what a first grader does at one of North Carolina's finest public schools that they almost missed the bus. My 5-year-old was running down the street today, and I thought, those are the kids who've just talked to me about their learning lab and the technology in their elementary school. So it's all about creating this culture within a school where you have leaders who want to work together, how you have an effective teacher and great tools and deep and rich content. And that's what digital learning can provide. And you result in a powerful learning environment to achieve for all the students. I saw some of the numbers on the charts about who achieves and who doesn't achieve. Y'all, that's the data for the whole country. It's not just the data for North Carolina. Our nation has a problem around how we bring all learners up and how we engage all students to give them at least a bite of the apple on their journey toward adulthood and careers. So I encourage you to think of Digi as one of the pieces of that solution. When we first started our organization, as we've learned over the years, we had to bring people in. Myra and I don't know everything. Our board knows not everything. And so we listened to teachers. I learned that a long time ago. We brought them in from 10 of North Carolina's school districts. And all of the school districts were really proficient, highly proficient in working with digital. And they went from the poorest county system in the state to the wealthiest. So it doesn't matter what your economic level is if you're using digital learning and you have highly trained teachers. It matters how much you want to innovate. And so we listened to them, and they were using this technology for instructions. And we asked them, which we're not often prone to do as state leaders, what kind of tools and skills and knowledge they needed in their professional development and in their work to be able to implement personalized learning for all students. The result was the Digital Scholars Model, which you'll hear more about. That model is competency-based. It's designed in partnership with teachers around the components of effective professional development that is job-embedded, inquiry-driven, and very, very collaborative. That's the big switch in professional development for a digital scholar. Over 2 years, we worked with the Friday Center and others to test, to evaluate, and to implement our model. And we found, y'all, that it worked. With support from Carnegie and Gates, we did the work and we paid the teachers for the work that they accomplished. We feel good about that. And so you come to the point where you're thinking, how do you expand this? Where do we go so that my county, Craven, in eastern North Carolina, or other counties here other than Durham in the Triangle, can have an opportunity to participate in DigiLearn, or something analogous to DigiLearn, where digital scholars are developed and where they're rewarded and where they can become portable. One of the things that I've found so critical in this work is the need for a teacher to get some kind of credential or badging that shows he or she has accomplished these great goals. And as I move from one county system or city system to another, I have to be able to take that with me. And it was impossible in our discussions around the country to figure out how we could make CEUs, the traditional continuing education units, work for these teachers who we began to call badged. It's a new word. I hope you all are thinking about doing it in your systems. It's something that the best universities in the country are trying to do, and some of the smallest school systems in America are talking about doing. This learning needs to be recognized officially and be portable. It's not accidental what happens when you can do that. We looked across the nation, and this is how come it's begun to be a national project. We looked across the nation, and other states are really having the discussion. Some of my friends who are governors or former governors are doing the same discussion with their state board, but they're doing it in little pockets. Like one of them may be flying to the moon and back. Yesterday, the new mayor of Raleigh used the term moonshot. They've all had their moonshots and they've achieved their goals, but there's no way to embed what they are doing in their system in the statewide system to make all of the learning by teachers and the work by teachers accredited. Micro-credentials then, this thing that we're talking about, the badges, the whatever you want to call it, is a new way to think about having teachers be able to identify what skill sets they need, not what somebody's telling them they need, and not to go to for a day and listen and maybe learn, maybe not learn, quite frankly, but what they can do in their own time, in their own space, and become really robust in a different way of teaching. It provides teachers with opportunities to learn and demonstrate competency in new skills and technology in specific areas, while they get feedback from an outside evaluator and earn recognition by mastering the credits. and mastering the content. It's totally unlike the traditional seat time model that's typically used for professional educators, including back when I was a teacher doing professional development. To learn more, I want to hand it off to these two experts with me and to Myra, who will direct the conversation. Again, thank you for your attention. I hope that you all get really excited about what North Carolina is getting ready to embark on. Ladies? I can't take the seat if he's sitting in it. Although I've been known to do that.
Give us a little we have a little patience with our transition here. So that we can set you up for the conversation, we'd like to begin by showing a very short video clip. And the reason we're showing this video clip is we want you to get a real clear picture of what our outstanding digital scholar, Sally Schultz, does in her classroom, and think about how that's not something you can go to a meeting and hear about. It's not something you can go sit and watch, but it's something that teachers need to really experience. So after we show the video clip, we'll get into some panel discussions with our rock stars, and you notice that I was not included in the rock star, but that's okay. So just look at it. It's just very, very brief.
So when you walk in, there's a bunch of different activities going on. So I try to really do a lot of hands-on learning. So the students are working through their individualized playlists at their own pace, doing activities that are personalized for them on their level, and then I'm doing my teacher-directed with them. So I pull groups, we do a lot of walkthroughs, interacting, some digital programs, and a lot of flipped lessons with them. A playlist is basically all of the activities you would teach in one unit in a list of activities for students to work through. The activities are differentiated. It includes nonfiction text, it includes videos, flipped lessons. So it's everything that you would teach in a unit all in one, and then my students get to work through it at their own pace. So it depends on the unit, but typically I have 8 to 10 different playlists for each unit, and then that is different. Each playlist is differentiated. Layers. Remember the canopy, they come together and have those different layers, so they block out a lot of that sun and keep that heat trapped in there.
Thank you. We wanted you to get a brief picture of what her classroom looks like.
So when you walk in, there's a bunch of different activities going on. So I try to really do a lot of hands-on
We want to
learning.
hear it again.
So the students
It
are
was so
working through
good.
their individualized playlists at their own pace, doing activities that are personalized for them.
Thank you. And I want to point out that Sally is an outstanding teacher in the classroom, and she was outstanding when we recruited her to be a digital scholar. And the uniqueness about being a digital scholar is that you do have to demonstrate specific competencies in order to be selected for that. And as a part of what this particular function for a digital scholar is to be proficient and and have mastery in personalized learning, digital learning, and also professional development. So as in that role, she has demonstrated those skills, and she uses them in her classroom every day. As a part of the classroom piece that's so important for the scholars is using your classroom as a learning lab. As a practicing teacher, she continues in her regular classroom role, and during her day, she uses her classroom as a learning lab for other teachers in her school, in her district, and from outside of her district to come in and actually observe what she's doing. As a follow-up to that, there is a process where those who come in and experience have a chance to engage in communication and discussion with Sally about their experience, but we also follow up and track and get feedback from those teachers. And then Sally is able to go and have discussion with them and help them if they want to implement a new skill in their classroom. She's there to help them try and implement that, which is very different than the way we typically do professional learning. And when we did the survey of the teachers, we found that 90-some%, I think it was 94% of the teachers we surveyed across the state want to do digital, and they want to learn and do new practices, but they want to be able to do it in their school, in their district, and they want to do it in real time so that they actually can have someone come in and help them as they begin to do that skill. So without further ado, I'm going to start directing questions to these fine folks. And the first question I'd asked to Sally is to tell us a little bit about what they saw in the video with what you're doing in the classroom, and tell us how the digital scholar piece is different than traditional professional learning that you've been a part of.
I think the most beneficial piece for the professional learning for teachers is getting to see it in action, being immersed in the classroom and talking to the students. So I've had the opportunity to present across the state and several national conferences to share how my classroom works. And I could sit there and talk about my room all day long, but you don't truly get an understanding of it until you're in there seeing it in action and talking with the kids. So the way my classroom works is that each student has their own personalized learning path. And the way we arrive at that is that students take a pre-assessment, and based on where they're at with particular standards, I then develop a playlist for each of them. They'll then work through that playlist at their own pace, while I pull small groups and work on specific standards or skills that they need. So with my 38 students, you can come in at any time and they'll be doing 38 different activities. So it is organized chaos when you come in. Students are all over doing projects. There's a lot of choice and student interest embedded with it as well. We do a lot of job-embedded curriculum as well, so my students are interested in careers in the health sciences field, so those are tied into our curriculum as well. With the learning labs, how it works is that teachers sign up. We have teachers from across the county and then other counties as well. And I will reach out to them ahead of time and let them know just an overview of how the classroom runs. And then I'll ask them what their goals are for the day, because several times teachers will come in, it can be overwhelming. I have a multi-age, multi-subject class, so at any time when you come in, I have 6th grade math, 6th grade ELA, 7th grade science, and 7th grade math. So they have the flexibility to determine their schedules as well. So if a student wanted to work on math for the entire time they're with me, one day they could, the next day they might work on their science. So they have a lot of freedom and flexibility and take ownership as well. So as an outsider coming in, that can be very overwhelming. So with me being able to reach out to these teachers ahead of time and see what their goals are, I can then give them suggestions for what specific aspects to look at. So if a teacher is really interested in improving personalized learning, I can direct them to pay close attention to the playlist. If a teacher wants to get better at differentiating their teacher-directed time, I can give them suggestions of what to look for when they come in. And then after the visit, I'll reach back out to the teachers and we'll have coaching sessions. So we'll sit down after school or on the weekends and look at how they can take aspects and bring it into their classroom. So it's not about teachers replicating my classroom, and they're just taking pieces that are going to work for their students. And I think that's one of the most important parts, is that serving different students, you need to look at the students that you have. So what I do year to year is different based on the kids that I have, and that's what I think is important for teachers that come in to realize I can't just replicate and do exactly this. I have to do what my students need. So we do a lot of coaching. There's some teachers that I've been working with for the last 2 years of this that have come in several times, and we're continuing looking for ways to improve the personalized learning with them. On my end, some of the benefits is that I am the type of teacher, I want to continue to improve. I'm my own worst critic, and I'm always looking for what I need to improve. So I'm also able to get feedback from teachers that are coming in and get kind of an outside perspective of areas that I can improve and questions that they have to make me reflect and see what my next steps are. With my students, I've seen so much progress with them. One of the most important pieces is the confidence it builds. The school that I'm at is a Title I school. The majority of my students come from poverty. The situations they go home to are heartbreaking. And you would not even imagine, you would not know what they go home to after you come in and speak to them. I was telling Dr. Mookie today, one of my students who's been one of the best greeters and has gotten so many compliments from visitors, he's a 7th grader with several felonies on his record already. And you wouldn't know that talking to him. He said for the first time he was motivated to do it for himself and not for somebody else, which has been a really big improvement for him. But the kids, the learning's in their hands, and they take ownership. They have student data notebooks, so as they master content, they reflect in a digital notebook on where they think they're at. I give my feedback on where they're performing, and then together we'll sit down and set goals for how we can help them master and progress forward. And then as far as digital scholars, we So one of mine, for instance, is improving the problem-based learning that I do with my students. So last year I had the opportunity to go to High Tech High out in California, sit in on classrooms. Another digital scholar and I were able to create a PBL and present it to teachers from around the world, which was a really neat experience for us to get feedback for how we could implement it with our kids. So I think it's not only personalized for the teachers coming in, it's personalized for the digital scholars as well. So many times I have sat in professional developments and spent an entire day sitting there that everyone has to get, and you walk away wondering, what did I just do with these last 8 hours, because it wasn't something you necessarily needed. So I think it's really important not only for the students to get the personalized instruction they need, but for teachers as well. And with the micro-credentials, I think one thing that's really beneficial for a teacher is it helps to make us more competitive. If I were to go look at a different school, not that I am, but if I were to go to an outside county, I could sit in an interview, but you won't truly know what I'm able to do in the classroom based off an interview. So I think for a principal to see what those credentials are that I've earned will help give a better idea of me as a teacher and help make me more marketable.
And just so you understand, when she talks about the students taking ownership of their learning, this is not contrived, but if you ever go, just drop by her classroom and you walk in, the first thing that will happen is a student will immediately walk up to you and introduce themselves, and they'll say, let me show you what we're doing today. They will take you around and show you the different stations, and if you noticed, her classroom did not have desks. It was a flexible classroom, which she's been able to create. And they'll not only show you what the other students are doing, they'll show you their individual portfolio, they'll show you how they assess their work. They'll sit down and tell you, well, I did really well in this area of math, but as I look back at what I've done, I need to improve in this area. And as she indicated, she is in a lot of her students are high risk, they're high poverty, and she's done a phenomenal job at improving that in the classroom. And by being a digital scholar, she also gets additional compensation. As a part of what we do, we are able to give her compensation so that she is rewarded and receives the compensation to be the coach, to use her classroom as a learning lab. We also provide personalized professional development for the scholars, so that, as Sally shared with you, she can go and work on what she needs to do. Cover that. So you have to think about it in terms of a cost factor. And for us, as Governor Perdue was talking about, as we looked at the whole issue around how do we begin to scale this to other places? Well, she's in a district where we're giving her compensation, but if she goes to another district that does not recognize the digital scholars' work, then she will not be allowed to do the work she's doing. She won't get that personalized professional learning for herself, nor will she get that compensation. So that brings us back to, again, the components of a micro-credential and why that's so important, that we have some consistency and some standardization across the area. And to tell more about that, I'm going to go to the next rock star, Dr. Moody, and let her share a little bit about her perspective as a district superintendent and why she was so supportive of us trying and attempting this work in her district.
Well, thank you. I'm not confident at all that I'm a rock star. I'm just a practitioner. But every teacher in my district, I'm proud to say, is just like Sally Schultz. You can go in any classroom and say exactly what she does. And you know that's not true, right? Like, I'm just trying to wake you up a little bit and say, if I gave Sally or Freebird 8 hours of PD in a sit and get classroom on classroom management, they would be racking their heads like, why am I here? I have got a million things to do. They are so far beyond a basic level classroom management, professional development. But for many of my teachers, that's exactly where they're at. They just got out of school, or that's what they're struggling with. Until we get the culture of their classroom right, they can't move to this level of teaching, or what Freebird does in his classroom. So it's really critically important for us to be able to find ways to model exactly what we are expecting out of our teachers. If I want Sally to teach that way, but I teach in a traditional way of her professional development as a leader, what have I just said? I said that's not important. That's not the way people learn. I'm going to tell you one thing to do, but I'm going to do another. So we have to change how our teachers get it. me, I got my doctorate by getting up at 4:30 in the morning, because that's the time that I'm an early riser. If I'd had to go to class at 10 o'clock at night, I couldn't have done it. Because at 9, I'm crashed, I'm done for the day. If we could get our professional development on the goals that we need them at, and when we need them, and how, you can see the back of Freebird's laptop, for example, with his stickers and patches about the places. You can imagine that the kind of professional development that the two of them need and the places they need to go for that is so different than beginning teacher. But what if transferability across the state, I was able to say, one of my colleagues, say Valerie Bridges in Edgecombe County called me up and said, I really would like, which we share a lot of work together. So if she was to say, you know, we're really thinking about competency-based education, what have you done on that? I have 5 people who are credentialed in that work who could work with your 5 people who are working on that specific skill or task. We could trade and share and be able to look at those experiences. But just the day of thinking that a master's degree or even is enough to say that this is a higher level teacher, we all know that that's not true any longer. There are very specific skills that we would love for our teachers to know and be able to do, and we believe that they can pace those at their own pace, just like Sally's students do in her classroom. They all start at different levels, and they all need different things, and we could build that out. I have the benefit of being able to do a little bit of traveling in a couple of superintendent national networks that work on transformational science, and there are bits and pockets of this all over the country. As Myra said, there's nothing systemic. So at this point, talked with Digital Promise and the League of Innovative Schools, who directs a lot of micro-credentialing work and has a committee on that, and we're not aware of a state who's been able to move this as an entire state. Arkansas, Tennessee, and parts of Wisconsin are really working towards this, but not completely collaborative as a state. You'll see lots of school districts there doing this work. So I think it's exciting to think about how North Carolina could be a front runner in this kind of work, and how we redefine and change how we deliver professional development for teachers.
And Governor Perdue, you mentioned what we'd seen across the country. Can you tell us a little bit more about how this relates to the workforce and what we're hearing and seeing as we go across the country doing the work we're doing?
It's really related to the workforce. 20 years ago, maybe not that long, I'm not that old, I know, but several years ago when I was lieutenant governor, I heard folks talking in the business community about Southeast Raleigh High School. And I said, Myra, take me to Southeast Raleigh High School. I asked permission of the governor and the state board chair. And I went in, and Cisco had started one of their first academies in the high school right here in White County. And these students from all kinds of homes, all kinds of backgrounds, it doesn't matter who you are or what you are, it's what you can become. These kids were working on their own level at their own pace. They were doing incredible things, coding. I didn't have a clue what coding was back then. And I thought about the skill sets they were getting, and I thought, this is incredible. It's job-specific in special areas in technology. What are you going to do with it when you graduate high school? Well, the Cisco executive that was touring with me said, Governor, we are going to hire these kids. Any kid that gets a Cisco badge coming out of this program, we're going to hire the day they're graduated, the day they're ready to go to work. I said, what are you going to pay them? Are you going to pay them the same as you do adult workers? He said, these young men and women will start out at $72,000 a year. Y'all, back then, that was a gold mine. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about credentialing and badges. That's why the post-secondary institutions across the country are very, very concerned about the private for-profits who've entered the education training arena and who can now pick and choose and skim the top for teachers who want to try to learn on their own or for workers who want to learn on their own. Every big tech company in the country, every major industry in the country, including McDonald's, are beginning to do this work for their employees. They can be starting employees, they can be mid-career employees, or they can be the executive team's employees, the C-suite. They all need some kind of continuing training. In the 10 years, the last 10 years, micro-credentials have really taken hold. The badges have become so incredibly important that the military, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, have gone around, and you know, military is very big in North Carolina. We're very military friendly. And all 5 bases are now beginning the work of badging the soldiers and airmen and Navy guys and gals who are leaving the service, so that when they leave, in order to enter the private sector, they will have credentials or badges in their job application portfolio. A lot of this is all new, and it's an opportunity for us to really explore where we can go in North Carolina. I'm going to give kind of a summary statement, and then I'm going to ask for questions. We'll go through Myra, and we'd love to hear your questions. We've got about 10 minutes for that. Thank you again, Dr. Oxenden, for allowing us to come. As we're learning with the digital scholars, competency-based micro-credentials offer pathways for schools and for teachers and for districts to create their own individual system of learning. It's as simple as that. There are questions to be answered, and there's deep learning that's needed about the increased rigor in professional development that we're asking for, about the quality control. How are we going to measure what teachers might take in their badging system? A demonstration of a learned skill, and again, the portability. That's key for me, and I think key for anybody who's trying to do micro-credentials. I want to know what I have that I can sell to a principal or to somebody who's interviewing me for a job, and I actually want to know if I'm going to get paid for it. That's a question we won't talk about today because of the state of the budget as it is in North Carolina. I believe that micro-credentials hold great promise, leaders of education for North Carolina. And we've seen it in the workforce already. We're just beginning to see it in education. It can fundamentally change the way teachers and states provide professional development and the quality of those development. And as teachers do this work, it all ends up helping the students across North Carolina become better learners as they do their own personalized learning. By taking on the work, this board with us and with others around the country, because the country wants to be involved in this work, North Carolina, once again, it's been so long, y'all, let's do this, can become the leader in the nation on the development and authorization of a micro-credential that credentials agencies and teachers and folks across this state develop a model policy and get it done. Again, we have the money to do the work. The Carnegie Foundation from New York has already given us a fairly substantial grant to help develop, not help develop, the first approved by the state board micro-credential in the country. They believe we can do the work. We've shown them before that we can do innovative, kind of standard-changing work in North Carolina. And that's what we're about today, and that's the work we're going to do for the next year or two. We invite you to be partners. Thank you for your attention. Now ask these two educational leaders or Myra good questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and the floor is open for questions from my colleagues. Freebird.
Hey Sally, how you doing? Your classroom visit was absolutely one of the highlights of my Teacher of the Year journey. For two reasons. A, you had the tallest, largest middle schooler I've ever seen. He was the size of LeBron James. But also, I was blown away by the fluidity of your classroom. And as we think about this kind of esoterically and we're trying to, what do you think were some of the challenges in that education culture, like transformation that kind of had to occur as you developed that? Because every single student knew exactly where they were on your wall chart, like, what spot they were on, and every one of them was doing a different activity, and I can't remember, that was the T-shirt here downstairs where they had the body parts. Okay, it was, activities and skill development that involved that, but then, some of them working on their iPads. So what was kind of some of the challenges that you went through, but also as a coach, you kind of work with educators in that transformation?
For me personally, the first month of school is a challenge because most of the students that I have not been successful at school, so they don't even want to try. They come in and they would rather get attention for their behavior than to let people know that they were performing at a lower level. So it takes a lot of building the relationships with the students and letting them see that I'm going to tweak their content for what they need. So for instance, an assessment piece, I had a student that, you can't give me word problems I can't read. Well, what if I read it aloud to you? Or for science, well, instead of you reading questions and circling the answers for the digestive system, I have a tape out on the floor right now, the students will walk through and their assessment is explaining the functions of each part in the relationship. So I think it's really gaining the students' trust, which isn't always easy, and it's ongoing throughout the year. So that's kind of my personal challenge, is getting started each year with that with new students. As far as coaching, the time commitment to do it is a lot. And a lot of teachers will say, for what I'm making, I'm not giving up my nights and weekends. I'm at school till 8, 9 o'clock every night, and I'm there Saturdays and Sundays. To be able to personalize 38 different students for 4 different classes, it is a big time commitment. So I think that's the biggest resistance I get when working with teachers, is that's too much time.
Well, I was humbled, and you are absolute a lighthouse for our profession. So thank you for your commitment and your dedication to your kids. Thank you.
Ms. Kamnitz.
Sally, I'm interested in your journey to become a digital scholar. How long did it take you? Who coached you? Exactly what did that look like?
I can't even remember how long now it's been that we started Digital Scholars, but I was at the elementary level for 5 years, and we started with a blended learning model, and that's kind of where it started, that we started with a station rotation model that students moved through. And after about the first half of the year, I realized that I wasn't getting the quality of work that the students were capable of. And when I talked to all of my kids about it, I conversed with each of my classes, and I said, there's a timer on the board for us having to move stations. We're coming in the next day, forgetting where we're at the first day. And so that Christmas break, I went home and did some research and found the individual rotation model, which is the personalized playlist. So when I started with just a high, middle, low, and grouped my kids into 3 areas. As I got comfortable with that, I then moved on to 4 or 5, to the point that now, 5 years later, I'm able to do full personalized. And that's one thing that I talk to teachers when I do coach them, is where I'm at today is not where I started. And I have had to fail a lot and find out what doesn't work and able to be successful with it now. So it's definitely been a big learning process, and each year is me trying to improve a little bit more.
So are you sort of self-taught? How, basically, did you?
A lot of it, yeah, I think so.
I just wanted to add a little bit. She definitely is. She's self-interested and very passionate about it.
Really?
And she was in an elementary school with a principal that gave her the room and space to do and the encouragement to do it. Then DigiLearn came along and offered to help compensate her for this coaching model, which pushed her even further. And they sent her to a lot of professional development that I couldn't have afforded to do in my district. So she got special opportunities, special training. She worked with people all over the country that were expert teachers and became an expert teacher. She moved to the middle school, and under our new renewal plan, that school went to multi-grades, and she took on the 38 students, and we paid her like opportunity culture additional money too. So at this point, Sally makes, I don't know what her last paycheck was, but she makes as much or more than many of our principals in our district, and should, quite honestly, because she coaches and teaches more of our teachers than combination of help with DigiLearn supporting that, again, becomes so important because if you've got and we have those kind of teachers everywhere, like in every district, there's those self-motivated, passionate, they want to learn the next thing, they're innovative, they're creative, it's in their DNA, but they don't always have the opportunity to do that.
And to add to, I think part of the question you're asking is what is the skill set that she had to demonstrate and how did she reach that point? Sally was a part of our initial group that helped design the Digital Scholars model. We have a defined model and we have a rubric that we use to begin to select people if they've mastered certain skills. If they don't have those skills, or like in Sally's case, she'd already demonstrated many of those skills, but when she wanted to start improving the work she did, that's where her personalized professional development came into play. So the strengths that she did not meet, then she could then go and we provided the professional learning for her to achieve, to reach that level. Then a lot of it then after that, at that point, it becomes to continue to build on her knowledge and how she wants to continue to improve what she's doing in her classroom. And then she has become a model for new digital scholars coming into the role. They come and they visit, they learn from each other, and as they begin to implement, it becomes more of a learning community between all of them. So they do have competencies they must meet, and then when they are selected, their district's very involved in choosing them to be a part of it, and then what skills they need to improve, that's where we come in to help provide the support they need. If it's coaching, if it's learning more about personalized learning, then that's what we do, but it's aligned with their classroom goals, their district goals as well.
I think one of the most important things about it is giving teachers choice, and that's motivating to them, just like it is with students. And because if you had 15 different credentials you could get in the badging, I don't know what the number will be after it's developed, and maybe one of those is project management, one of them is social and emotional well-being, one of them is culture in the classroom. And Sally may have 12 of those already completed, but as a new teacher, I could look at that with my principal and think about what is the one credential that I need to be working on now? What's going to take me to the next step? And I can pace those as I go instead of everybody getting the same thing. I know I said it earlier, but I just think it's so important. It seems wrong as educational leaders, and I think you all are, I consider myself to be one, that we would have a different model for what we expect out of teachers than what we ask them to do inside the classroom. And I think we all want to see a more personalized education experience for every child in North Carolina. Wouldn't we want that for every teacher in North Carolina too?
Excellent. Couple of other questions. Mr. Buxton?
Just one comment, and I first just want to acknowledge, Governor, you were talking about and leading on technology before technology was cool.
I did.
And appreciate
This
your
board did. Thank you,
staying
JB.
with us. Madam Superintendent, you just said something that I think is so important. I think the micro-credentials at once really respects the learning needs of teachers and makes it they're much more empowered and in charge of their learning. So what Freebird and Mariah and Sally need are much more responsive to their needs and probably to their kids' needs than the way we do it now. But it's at the same time, it seems to me where I've seen people like Tennessee or Participate.com in North Carolina doing this, it's also more accountable because rather than just knowing you sent someone to something for 2 hours, and you don't really know what they got out of it. They're engaged in a module, they might have to upload evidence of doing it, you see that they've worked through it. As an administrator, you can actually track to what degree there's take-up in what they're doing. And so it seems like we're creating even more accountability for the investment we make in the professional learning. Never mind that it's that much more effective. So my question, Myra, maybe it's for you or Governor, for you, is from a state level and a policy level, not that you've got this all packaged, but what are the kind of things that a state needs to start thinking about to make this the way we do professional development? Is it about the CEUs? Is it about how we direct dollars?
Well, from my perspective, the initial thing is the development of a state-sanctioned credential. And again, states all over the country are talking about how you make this happen. we have the digital scholars with the background work and the models that's been tested by the Friday Center. We know what we're doing is working. So we are far and beyond what other states are doing. And that shouldn't matter, quite frankly, because we're North Carolina. We want to do it best here, and we want to lead here. And so I think the way we've always worked, what Mr. Buxton was referencing was the technology work. Maybe 14 years ago, we came to this group and begged the State Board of Education to work with us on technology, putting technology in every school in America. And they agreed. They said, we called it BETA, Business and Education Technology Alliance. And we worked for almost 2 years with the collaboration of players from the business community to educational leaders to private leaders to moms and superintendents and teachers. And we came up with a platform that, if implemented, would put about $400 million into technology into the state of North Carolina. We didn't agree. Some days I hated it. Some days I'd say, why am I wasting my time, Myra? And Myra would say, because we have to waste the time to have agreement and disagreements and to come up with something that really meets the needs of North Carolina. This is not going to be easy. We're not asking to change the whole professional development ballgame in North Carolina. I don't want to go down that track. I'm too old. What I really want to do is to lead this work on one simple sanctioned credential, a micro-credential that somebody like you, somebody's got to say it's the right thing to do. It may take us 18 months, Al. I don't know how long it's going to take us. But it'll be work done by a group, some national players, leaders, thought leaders across this state and across this country who can come up with the right formula for the right badge, for the first badge in America that's sanctioned. I think you ought to go down the path with me. I mean, we could fail. Lynn Moody's tells that she failed. I mean, it's okay to fail in the 21st century. But I don't believe we'll fail. I believe we'll come out looking great, and every governor in America will want to look just like us. So we invite y'all to be a partnership with us. I'd love some of you to serve on the commission. That's where we're headed. We're going to do this badge, and we want to do it with you.
Thank you very much. If there are no other questions, are there other questions, comments? This has been a very exciting presentation. We've heard about the process. We know about micro-credentialing from the classroom to the district level, to the national level, what's happening in other sectors with micro-credentialing. We've had 2 invitation board members to be part of the partnership, and we're just eager to make it happen, and we will continue talking about the partnership, how it unfolds, how it looks, and how to get this first in the state, first in the nation sanctioned credential by the State Board of Education.
Thank you,
Thank you
Dr.
ever so
Oxendine.
much.
We appreciate
Dr.
being
Moody,
here.
Ms. Schultz, and Ms. Best, wonderful seeing you, and Governor Perdue, marvelous.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Well, thank you, Dr. Oxendine. That's an exciting development, and we look forward to the partnership. And what a great lead into our next item, which is the Special Committee on Digital Learning and Computer Sciences. And I'll recognize Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And we have kind of a full presentation here this morning and a number of folks that are going to be presenting to us. We have Deputy Superintendent of Innovation David Segal, Mary Hemphill, Director of K-12 Computer Science and Technology, Dr. David Fry from the Friday Institute, Marie Hopper from First North Carolina, and Julia Wagner as well from First. And so there's kind of a long list. I'm just going to read this to you because I'm going to lay out kind of what's going to be in this series of presentations here so you know what to expect over the next 4 or 5 presentations. So the purpose of this is to update everybody on the work done by K-12 Computer Science and Technology Education Department, including the first round of revisions for the standards review process for North Carolina computer science, mobilize cross-sector partnerships to launch the I Am Computer Science campaign, forthcoming computer science landscape report developed by the Friday Institute, and also we're going to hear from folks from First NC as well. So Ms. Hemphill, I'm assuming you're going first since you're standing at the microphone. So we'll pass it on to Mary Hemphill. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. And good morning, Chairman Davis, esteemed members of the board, and valued stakeholders. I'm very excited to bring you an update from the North Carolina Computer Science Initiative. And I'm extra excited because this December is National Computer Science Month. We will be going into December 9th through the 15th, which is recognized as National Computer Science Education Week. And across the state, in many of our schools, not only here in Wake County, but across the state as a whole, we will have the Hour of Code activities, which each of you will have an opportunity to see previews today. I am honored to introduce First NC, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and their task is to inspire youth across North Carolina to further their studies and engagement in careers in STEM. First NC is the only evidence-based STEM enrichment program in the country, and they truly focus on equity and inclusion throughout the P16 continuum, teacher professional development for students in the classroom who are implementing their robotics and coding programs. They have been honored with STEM equity grants to make sure that they're reaching our hard to reach and hard to staff districts, and they provide access in LEAs that serve historically marginalized populations. This morning, it is my pleasure to introduce Marie Hopper, who is the president of First NC, Julia Wagner, who is their program director, and it is my extra honor to introduce their First NC student ambassadors, who you will hear from this morning regarding their experience and impact with First NC. We have Lenice Schwanese. She is a second grader at Partnership Elementary here in Wake County. We have Alexandra Pitchford. She is an 8th grader at Northeast Academy for Aerospace and Advanced Technologies in Pasquotank County. We also have Gabrielle Hoskins, who is in the 9th grade, who also attends Northeast Academy for Aerospace and Advanced Technologies in Pasquotank County. And last but not least, Casey Smith, who is a 10th grader at Rutherford City Early College High School in Rutherford County. Please join me in welcoming them.
Hello and thank you. We're so excited to be here this morning, and I'm really excited that you're going to have a chance to hear from the students that are engaged with our program. Before the students help kick us off, we'd like to do a hands-on activity so that you can feel what it's like to be in the classroom working with these kinds of programs. And we have enough around the table. When we ask you to do a partner activity, it will be working with the materials that you see in front of you. And we're going to turn it over right now to Miss Lenice to give you your first direction.
Everyone, please find a partner.
Everyone, please pick up 3 bricks and make sure you and your partner have the exact same 3 bricks.
Partner A, please raise your hand.
It's the 3 of us.
Partner A, please raise your hand.
Partner B, please raise your hand.
Oh, I'm partner
Stand back to back, no peeking and no talking.
Stand back to back.
Yep.
Good talk. It's gonna be hard for you to believe.
Says Matt. Partner A, please build a model with your 3 bricks.
Now explain your model. Now explain your model to partner B. Partner B, you need to build what your partner explains without asking questions or looking.
So partner A, you're going to explain to the partner behind you without showing them your model, without turning around, you're going to explain to them what you do.
Partner B, you're gonna try to build those words.
Middle block, bend on the bottom, perpendicular.
The same like
The light top and the bottom of it is on top of each other, but the dark blue in the middle is moved to the far side. They're all connected by whatever these little notches are. All three blocks connected. Row of notches. So
All done? Turn around and compare what you've built.
So it looks a little bit like.
Got it. Look, they're all struggling. They're all struggling. Got it.
Oh my Lord.
Thank you. Please have a seat.
That's completely natural.
Yes.
Completely natural. Right on the first try.
Back in the bag.
The second.
I know you're gonna be playing with them the rest of the day.
Hopefully that was fun for you. We know it's fun for kids. So when we look at the vision and mission statements for the State Board of Education, for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and for, oops, this is the wrong slide. Sorry, that instead was supposed to say the North Carolina Goals for Computer Science Education. We see that we have a common North Star, that it's all about making sure that we have children who are interested in computer science and engineering, and that we have these evidence-based programs that can help us get to that North Star. That's first. First is part of those missions. We complement the missions and the goals that the State Board of Education and the Department of Public Instruction and the computer science standards nationally have set out. We have evidence-based programs that engage students in hands-on project-based learning. Our pre-K through 12 programs can help us reach that shared North Star. We know that kids want to be more interested in computer science, but computer science is really hard to understand. I mean, what does it do? What does it look like? And robotics can make it more real. So, you know, what does it look like in our daily lives? How does it help us in our development of real thinkers? How do we make it developmentally appropriate practice? Robotics brings it to life. Robotics makes computer science hands-on, tangible, something that is evidence-based that kids can see, do, and feel with their hands, their hearts, and their minds. So, coming around, we have another activity.
Hello, everybody. So coming around, or what you already have in front of you, is several many different robots built using the We Do 2.0 kits. Now, typically in a classroom, the students will take time to build these robots. In the process, you will learn basic engineering, math, ratios, and more.
Each robot comes with a tablet. Your task is to figure out how to drag the code blocks into the middle of the screen next to the yellow play block. Make your robot move forward 3 seconds, stop, and then play a sound.
Now we will come around and we will unlock the tablets for you, which you have the coding in front of you. But once we get in, ready, set, code. And we'll also be here to help you if you need help.
Can you unlock them last?
Right, we're gonna mix
Unlock them last.
Don't listen to him.
Definitely.
We need a head start.
Don't drink that Haterade, please.
Okay.
Fucking date.
All right, it's all you. Oh.
We're not.
Yes.
Good.
Thanks. Oh, here we go.
This is our code.
We were trying to be so.
We want to go.
It's okay.
So if your robot doesn't move, it's probably not because it's wrong, because it's connected to a different robot.
Time, and that's stop. That's turn.
Well,
How to make it run. Okay.
I'm sure.
Awesome. Let's do this.
now, when you connect,
Point to
it will
parrot.
come up over here.
So
Here's the
let's turn this on.
they're all named differently.
Okay, so you're paired, good to go. Now you have to figure out how are you gonna drag some of these up here to make this go forward for 3 seconds. That way it's sound.
You have to figure out
What
do these things. Have to figure out what these symbols mean.
Yeah.
So they have to move forward. That's speed.
So when we're working with students, we
So
ask
it's
them,
not
what do you
so our
think
speed is 8, whatever that means.
Looks like it raises the temperature.
Connect it like this way? Oh, okay.
That one stops it.
Right.
That one turns to the left, that one turns to the right.
Okay, so now how would you make it turn on?
Okay. I'm old, so I'm gonna make sure.
How to make it turn?
There we go.
It's motor.
Drag that.
Just got a motor.
We put this up.
Well, that's a timer is what.
Oh, yeah,
Put this
yeah,
up
yeah.
as
And
time.
then the speed doesn't.
We wanted that to be 3.
How do we move it up and down? Ah,
What does the 8 mean?
That's working.
What do you think it might mean?
and then we want it to play a sound. Okay.
First, you have to be connected.
Whoopsie.
Speed.
When you're driving a car,
So you guys actually, you can play different sounds as well. We want to make
the
sure
motor
that
turns
yours is
right
actually
left.
connected.
You also control what?
If it's not go, does not mean it's wrong. It might be
It says thumbs up, so
Somebody took me.
let's see.
So if that is the case, I gotta turn around and try to play.
And we don't know how fast
Let's
8
go backwards.
So keep in mind that you've got a motor. If you want to
Pretty fast, you
So it is moving.
Okay.
Go that way.
If somebody else
Play it, see if it works.
and they're running.
That's the length of time that it's gonna do that motion?
Let's give it a
Does it
clear
have to be in a
path.
certain
Wait,
order?
why don't we start
Or
it
does it matter? As long as it
there? It goes straight.
All right, well,
Whichever one goes.
connect the robot first. We're gonna, if you press it, turn on the head, you can test it. There's a button there, see its eyes.
Can that move, or does that have to stay right there?
Sound.
Why didn't it go?
Look at that.
All just name different numbers and times on There's no number.
What? I'm gonna play a sound.
We're beating Freebird. Let's do it.
Is this? Looks good. Right, nice and loud too.
I believe that's. Change that to a
Yep.
3.
Right.
If that one will work. Can we just,
There it
oh,
is.
there it is.
Oh, look how it moves.
Are we?
You might be.
Okay. Yeah, so we can see if it does it.
when you,
One time, but it was.
you're connecting ours. You're hitting play, watch this.
Oh, well, in that case,
We can make it do other things.
whatever you connect it to that second.
Oh, I like this little guy. I like the way he moves. That's cool. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
All day, every day.
3 seconds.
Great job, everyone. I've been told in the interest of time, we need to move on, because we could play all day.
Let's try that.
We need to go faster if we're going to do that.
I don't think so. I think I got it figured out now. I think we're pretty good for the moment. I'll let you know though.
We just got on now.
If you want to, you can just tap on the. Press play.
All right, friends. We're going to wrap up our activity.
I just realized.
So hopefully, as you are working with these robots,
And that's why they did the
you can see that the robots are helping to bring the coding to life. Again, it's helping to make it real, tangible, fun, exciting for the students. They are beginning that iterative process of engineering by able to make some modifications to that robot. So you obviously didn't go through the building part. And then they get to do a lot of experimentation, especially with the coding, figuring out what those different numbers mean, how does that impact how the robot moves, etc. First is providing a progression of programs that are developmentally appropriate, starting with our earliest learners in pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. We have our first LEGO League Junior Discovery Edition using the LEGO Duplo elements. And this is again for our youngest learners, getting them engaged in fun, playful STEM activities. At this age level, we're looking at developing and building on their habits of learning, focusing a lot on STEM vocabulary, teamwork activities, and all of that, again, is designed to be able to help them get that fundamental engineering concepts and get them really thinking about that testing, refining, and doing it in a team. So they start off there, and then they move on to the First Lego League Junior. You saw a snapshot of the First Lego League Junior Discovery with the 6 Bricks activity, and now we'll learn more about First Lego League Junior.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're going to end this meeting and just do this the rest of the day.
You're having too much fun.
This is too much fun.
Hi, my name is Lanith, and I am in 2nd grade at Partnership Elementary. First Lego League Junior is for students like me in 2nd grade and 4th grades. We learn how to compare together, cooperate together to build models. From Lego elements, we program them to move. We also make posters to show our teachers and parents what we have learned every year. The topic we explore changes. Keeping it fun and exciting, this year we are learning about our community and designing buildings that have to solve a problem to make our lives better.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Pitchford. I'm in 8th grade and I go to Northeast Academy for Aerospace and Advanced Technologies. First Lego League is for students like me in grades 4 to 8. We build bigger robots from the Lego Mindstorm's EV3 kits. Our robots have to be completely autonomous, which means that we can't drive them. This is pretty hard, but tons of fun as we figure out how to build robots to accomplish different challenges on the game board. We also do a research project and propose creative solutions to solve real-world problems. Interesting fact, over 100 FLL teams hold provisional and full patents for ideas they came up with as part of their project.
Wow. Hello, everybody. My name is Gabrielle Hoskins, and I'm a 9th grader who attends Northeast Academy for Aerospace and Advanced Technologies. First Tech Challenge is for students like me in grades 7 through 12. We build even bigger and more complex robots, about the size of a microwave oven. These robots are normally a mix of autonomous and driven. We use pretty sophisticated sensors and mechanisms. We also use an engineering design notebook to keep track of our iterations and also to strengthen our use of the engineering design process in our design work.
Hi, I'm Casey Smith. I'm a 10th grader from the Rutherford County Early College High School, and first is for high school students. We design, build, and program big robots. They can even be the size of a small refrigerator. Our robots can weigh about 120 pounds and can do amazing things like climbing ropes, moving gears, frisbees, and inner tubes around a large game field. We only have about 7 weeks to build and design our robot, and there are no directions and many solutions to explore. Our robots, while cool machines, are just chunks of hardware with no programming and code to make them function. Our team engages with computer science by programming and using code languages found in industry today. We are using real-world technology while still in high school.
All of these programs, with the exception of the First Robotics Competition program, have a classroom component to them. So they can be used in the classroom to reach all of the children. They have been mapped to all of the various educational standards, including the standard course of study for math, science, English language arts, the 21st century learning skills, and the National Computer Science Standards. So we know that these programs align with what they have to do in the school day. We look at the First Lego League Junior, First Lego League, and First Tech Challenge programs as being the gym class for technology and computer science, and the First Robotics Competition as being that after-school athletic competitive sport for the most important muscle in the human body, the brain. First also has an activity, a big focus on equity and inclusion. We are working really, really hard to make sure that our programs can be reached by every single student, regardless of their gender, their ethnicity, or their zip code. We are the only impact-driven and the only program with a longitudinal study of almost 16 years worth of data now, showing that our programs in fact work. For me, one of the highlights that came out of the studies was the stickiness of our programs. We have discovered that students who have even just 1 year at any level of our program, 4 years later are still showing the impact of having been involved in this kinds of project-based learning in robotics. The other exciting news is that the impact on young women is especially strong and life-changing. Our ratio of young women involved in our programs is significantly higher than what you would find in business and industry right now. Here in North Carolina, we've been really lucky to get 2 STEM equity grants. We have implemented them in the Robeson County school districts so that currently all of the 2nd grade students and now all of the 5th grade students are engaging in these programs during the classroom day as part of their regular course of study. In addition, this year we had for the first time ever an all-girls high school robotics competition. We had over 200 young women from across the state come together for a full day of playing with their robots. And the importance of this event really came home to me because at the event, we had one of our older gentleman coaches come to me and he said, Marie, quote, I was really skeptical about why we needed an all-girls event. I didn't think the girls could do it. They surprised me and they're knocking it out of the park, end quote. That was told to me by 3 different male mentors. So clearly our young women, we give it lip service, but until we actually give them something concrete to do, they're not necessarily getting these opportunities. What we heard from the girls was that they finally had a chance to drive the robot. Typically at their meetings, the boys tend to take it over. They had a chance to work on the robot and actually learn how to use the tools. And most importantly, from my perspective, they had a chance to code the robot. And they discovered that they really do enjoy coding.
We work really hard to bring people that look like our students in front of our students, especially ones in leadership roles. It's really important to partner with organizations like the Society of Women Engineers and the National Society of Black Engineers, and also corporates, local corporations, businesses, to bring those mentors to our students, to bring their talent, bring their skills, and help them to coach and get them excited and engaged and see what they can do and be in their lives.
In fact, we have over 3,650 plus mentors that are giving of their time. They are teachers, they are industry people, they are business people, giving their time to these students. We have over 112,000 hours from our volunteers just last year alone, and they're reaching almost 14,000 students across the state. In fact, currently we're reaching students in 67 of our counties. I threaten my staff that I can't retire until we are in all 100 counties. I'm not sure if they like that or not. But we know the importance of mentoring. We know the importance of mentoring and how important it is for students to have people who look like them, showing them what's possible in the world. Our benefits include that we have a community, that we expand the team, not just from the team of students, but to their classroom, to their entire school, to their entire community, that they're learning life skills. They're getting into the real world and figuring out what needs to happen, and that there are lots of emotional benefits for them as they work on this. By bringing the FIRST program into the classroom, the after-school experience is expanded, and it makes it more inclusive. That way, we're not leaving any students behind. There is so much talent hidden in our state and hidden in our classrooms. They just need the opportunity to experience these kinds of programs. And FIRST is so much more than robots. So we want to turn it over back to the students to have them help us understand. We sit on top of 6 core values, and each student is going to address a core value for us, and in their own words, tell us a little bit about what that means. So Lenise, come on up here. Oops. And tell us about discovery.
We explore new skills and ideas.
Just tell us about
My Lego FIRST group is learning to work as a team. To build a crane by following instructions, after the instructions, I could build whatever I wanted. I got to build my own building however I wanted. it made me proud.
Dustin, tell us about teamwork.
We are stronger when we work together. Teamwork in FIRST isn't just one team building a single robot. We don't have competitions, we have cooperation. For example, at a FIRST robotics competition, there are 3 teams that form an alliance, but it goes beyond that. Teams work together in the pits to help troubleshoot other teams' robots and also help to repair mechanisms on other robots. It's not about one specific team, it's about the FIRST team.
Alexandra, tell us about impact.
Impact. We apply what we learn to improve our world. For our research project this year, my team and I talked about the rising tides in coastal North Carolina. We have proposed 4 key things that our coastal cities can do now. Number 1, reduce our carbon footprint by reducing the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. Number 2, coastal cities can restore and protect wetlands that act as natural buffers during natural disasters. Number 3, consume less and waste less. Number 4, cities can push for climate action plans to address climate change, which is the primary cause for our current sea level rise.
With the help of last year's FLL project about growing plants in space, me and my team were able to win my school $10,000. This was a result of winning the Biogen Spark video contest. I was also given a chance to verbally expose to my peers the different opportunities of FIRST.
Gabby, tell us about innovation.
Innovation. We use persistence and creativity to solve our problems. Like I have previously stated, last year's FLL project was based on growing plants in space. So me and my team actually took a trip down Elizabeth City State University's campus to visit Dr. Young, a plant geneticist. This is where we learn how to grow plants in space or the creative ways to grow plants in space. We're also able to look at her plant gene gun.
Casey, tell us about inclusion.
Inclusion. We respect each other and embrace our differences. Our team is very diverse. We have all kinds of different people from all kinds of different backgrounds and ethnicities. Our team is even more female than male. Before this team, when I first joined, I didn't even know how to put a drill bit into a drill. But I'm good at design and putting things together and seeing the big picture. But there's other people who can weld, do electrical. There's others who can program in both LabVIEW and Java. And there's other people who can do marketing and business perfectly. And because of these differences, we help ourselves grow as individuals. Before this team, I was so afraid of public speaking, I would avoid it at any cost. But through this team, I have learned to embrace the difficulties through the inspiration of those around me. And because there's so many differences between people, there's also different viewpoints. So we need a brainstorming process to reflect this. So once we get our idea for the season, we get into small groups of about 6 to 7 people. We come up with a plan on how we're going to build it, what we're going to build, and what we're going to try to do on the field. And once we've done this, we've drawn it down in everything, we rotate everyone in the group except for one person. That person is going to stay and explain their plan to everyone else rotating around the room. Once all the groups have been visited, we're going to come back with about 3 ideas that condense from about 30 in a short time frame.
Lenise, tell us about our last core value.
We enjoy and celebrate what we do. FIRST is the hardest fun we had ever had.
Our programs teach 21st century skills. Digital age literacy means more than just programming on a tablet or a computer. It means making something tangible happen in the world. Through these programs, our students are learning inventive thinking. They're learning how to think outside the box. They're learning how to fail quickly, fail safely, and fail to recover. They're learning resilience as a result. When you have resilient students, you then have a productive workforce. They're learning communication skills. They're learning how to solve problems working together. We believe that with our programs in combination with computer science, that we can truly build a better future together for the students you saw today, as well as the students in the next generation to come. Thank you very much for your time, and you can tell the students are better speakers than I.
Thank you very much, Marie. Thank you for bringing your team in here to do this. You have something else you want to add?
My students reminded me to tell you that during your lunch break, we have examples of all 4 levels of robots in the hall for you.
Great. And just before we carry on, Ms. Sempill, I want to also just take a moment of personal privilege here, because I've had the opportunity to attend a lot of these events with FIRST and the competitions around the state. And I can say that I have, in all of the things that I witness in education, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen students that are as engaged, as thoughtful, using, my architecture background. I spent a lot of time thinking, how do you get design thinking into education in a way that's meaningful today? And FIRST does that. I mean, these young people that are building these robots are just phenomenal. See, Dean Kamen, who founded this program, says that, this is the one sport that every student can go pro in. We think about how much energy we put into athletics, how much money we put into athletics. And I was an athlete growing up. I loved athletics, and I'm not knocking it. But a very small fraction of students who desire to go pro ever can. And in this, everybody can. And you see, I encourage you, if you haven't been to one of these competitions, you need to attend. You need to see it in action, and you will immediately be a believer. And then you will know that North Carolina is missing the mark. This is a program we should have in every single school, regardless of the bureaucratic roadblocks, the financial roadblocks, whatever they happen to be. This is a place where I think this board could team up, and we could make a really compelling presentation to the General Assembly to say, fund this in every single school. North Carolina, I like to say we're first in a lot of things. We are not first in this. We are way behind in this, and we have a long way to go. And I think this is a place where we can encourage a lot of students to do phenomenal things with their lives, where they may not even, like these young people, some of them had no idea what they were getting into when they started. But this is a phenomenal program. So thank you for the moment of personal privilege, Ms. Sempill. I wanted just to share that, because I think we're missing the boat in our state right now.
Absolutely, and I also had the privilege to attend the Doyen Inspiration, which was the first female robotic competition, and all of the different stations, all of the computers, all of the different audio and different things were run by former FIRST robotics students who had come back from college as well as into their career to volunteer their time using skills that they learned in FIRST. So this truly is college and career. It stretches way past P through 16, and these students are using future-proof skills in their real lives. So again, I just want to say thank you to Marie and Julia for your work with FIRST NC. We also have representatives here from the Northeast Academy for Aerospace Technologies, Dr. Little and Dr. Harris. Thank you so much for being here, as well as the parents of our amazing ambassadors are here as well. So please, let's give them a hand for supporting these students. To help undergird this work for the North Carolina Computer Science Initiative, we have done great strides with mobilizing our computer science stakeholders across the state. With representation in all of the 8 regions, we were very excited to have over 85 applications from interested stakeholders, teacher leaders, school leaders, and district leaders who were interested in working and serving on the review and curriculum teams for the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. Based on policy SCOS 012, our process has been feedback-based, process-driven, improvement-oriented, and research-informed. And we are very excited because we have over 36 teacher leaders, 9 school leaders, 7 district leaders, and 5 curriculum leaders who came together for 2 days to start vetting the computer science standards and using this work. We are very excited as well to announce that North Carolina will be a forerunner, as we will include artificial intelligence as a guiding principle for our computer science standards. And based on the Artificial Intelligence for K-12 National Steering Team Committee, this is definitely going to be something that's that's going to set us above and beyond what the other 33 states who have already adopted standards are doing. Over the next 2 to 3 years, we hope to add virtual reality, machine learning, and big data and data analytics, as these are things that our students and our teachers are using on a daily basis. It is very important to note as well that those different review teams and curriculum teams were broken up into elementary and middle school teams, a pure middle school team, and 2 high school teams, Intro to Computer Science and Computer Science 1 and 2. We focused on the vertical bridges between 5th and 6th grade and also 8th and 9th grade. As I've talked with students as well as school leaders and teacher leaders and visited schools and districts, it is going to be very important that as a K-12 initiative, we make sure that if we're starting in elementary school, that our students arrive in middle school and have robust and rigorous experiences, because we are going to be building a foundation. You saw Lenice this morning in 2nd grade. She is going to be empowered with the vocabulary of cybersecurity and big data. So when she arrives in middle school, we want to make sure that we're supporting our middle school teachers so that they're able to make sure they quench her thirst for knowledge, and all the other students who are having some wonderful experiences with computer science at the elementary level. We are in the process of developing a computer science landscape map. The last map for computer science in our state was developed in 2017, and so we really wanted to take a good look and ask, what does the current computer science ecosystem look like across 8 regions? This is going to be very important as we start to develop professional development, think about the support that is necessary in each of these districts, and also address the specific challenges and concerns that are present in each of the computer science ecosystems. This data disaggregation is not only going to break down the computer science data by LEA and school, but we're going to take an intense look at the enrollment in computer science courses, the subgroups, as well as the pass scores for the AP Computer Science exam. This will be developed in partnership with the Friday Institute, who have been a robust partner with us since the beginning of this work, and we hope to have this finished in January 2020. We're going to use this landscape map to start thinking about regionally, where do we need to go into schools and LEAs and support those districts? What external partners do we need to tap to make sure that students and schools are supported by the industries and entities that are in their backyard, so that we can start providing externships, internships, and co-ops, because it is very important that as we graduate our students who are going to be majoring in computer science or thinking about a computer science career, that our industries are ready to embrace them, and so that they know exactly what is coming when we start implementation in 2020, 2021. As we've had conversations with over 50 industries and partners and affinity groups across the state over the past 7.5 months, it has become critical that we define what computer science and computational thinking is, so that we're working from a common knowledge base. Computer science is defined as the academic field of study that covers hardware, software, algorithms, and their applications and impacts on society. So that is the working definition that we will be going from. It is all undergirded by computational thinking, teaching students how to think and solve problems in the 21st century. It's a set of overlapping problem-solving skills that could be used in a variety of settings. And so we have a lot of good exemplars where computational thinking can be used in ELA, math, science, and social studies to help our students become better thinkers, because truly that's what employers are looking for. That's what colleges are looking for. And you heard today how they don't compete, they cooperate in terms of learning how to work as a team. That is an employable skill that is very necessary in the 21st century. As I mentioned, the Computer Science Initiative has received support from affinity groups across our state, different organizations and entities asking, how do we get involved in this work? And so we developed a computer science one-pager where we take to different organizations. We had the opportunity to present at the Future of Tech is Female on the Microsoft campus in Charlotte. And we're able to leave this one-pager with these businesses and organizations that always ask, how can we get involved and what can we do? It includes the 5 core concepts of our standards and what we're focusing on, as well as 2 ways that they can connect back to our work, because in late January, we will be bringing together external stakeholders to start reviewing the standards and previewing the standards. They will not only look at our K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9, 12 bands vertically, but also horizontally, so that they understand what teacher leaders, schools, and districts are going to be exposed to as they start to think about how they can further support the work that's happening in schools. The hashtag IMCS campaign has truly taken off, and we're very grateful. We have 4 specific goals. Our first is to show North Carolina K-12 students the possibilities for their futures in realistic and tangible ways. Consistently in conversations with teachers, students, parents, and community members, we have to rebrand what people think about when they think about computer science. And so this is an opportunity for us to show them real people in North Carolina who are living and learning and leading in this computer science space. Not only do we feature North Carolina individuals and entities, but this is diversity by industry. Robotics and coding is a very, very big part of computer science, but we also have cybersecurity, we have analysts, we have research and policy directors who really take a good look at how we're using computer science to impact what's happening across North Carolina. We also want to connect North Carolina organizations, entities, and industries to the K-12 teaching space. And last but not least, we want to increase participation in formal computer science education, exploration, and implementation. And we're going to do this by making sure that our ambassadors are armed with information that they can take out to their various networks and continue this conversation of what's happening in computer science. We officially launched our campaign at Sandy Grove Middle School on October 24th, and it was truly a pep rally for computer science. We had over 850 female 5th graders, 8th graders, and 12th graders who joined us in the gymnasium, 35 teacher leaders, paraprofessionals, and school leaders, 45 community stakeholders and external business partners, parents and guardians, 25 district office and executive leadership, and 15 DPI representatives. I heard one student, as she was doing the electric slide with our DJ that we had there, she said, "It feels like I'm home. It feels like I'm around family." I heard one paraprofessional say, "We've never seen this much excitement outside of homecoming." And this was a gym full of females who were excited about computer science. We even used our DJ to tie back into the fact that that is a computer science degree when you talk about engineering and making sure that you're connecting with people. So the energy and the excitement around this was just contagious. We introduced our ambassadors. We talked about the work that Hope County is going to be doing as a prototype district. They sent representatives to the Computer Science EdCon in Las Vegas to talk about how they are truly going to impact K-12 instruction. And they are doing some innovative things here. Here you will see a school who has a computer science club, and they use Legos to spell out hashtag I am computer science. They were very, very excited. Not only that, but one student received a $1,900 scholarship to attend the Summer Accelerator program through the North Carolina School for Science and Math. She was elated as she danced up to receive her award. And so she will spend 5 weeks at the North Carolina School of Science and Math immersed in math and science integration and technology. And last but not least, some of the schools, the 5th grade schools and elementary schools in Hope County, spent a week leading up to the event immersed in hour of code activities, much like the one that you did this morning, and also talking about computational thinking and how to get their young ladies excited. And this is just the start. We understand that 21st century learning really and truly leads to 22nd century impact. So the things that we're doing right now with our students, embedding this idea that they can approach science and math and technology, and like you heard this morning, not to be intimidated by the fact that they can use this to change the trajectories of their careers, break generational curses, particularly in our most rural areas in North Carolina. This is very, very exciting because we are starting early. In January of 2020, we will roll out the hashtag IMCS Ambassador Program that is open to all North Carolina educators as well as interested stakeholders. They will be involved in an application-based program. Once a month, they will come together for a webinar, which will have a guest speaker, which, remembering that hashtag IMCS is really focused on gender as well as equity, so they will have an opportunity to embrace those different things, but they will be charged with bringing into their schools, their districts, or their regions activities that truly embrace. So everything from Girls Go Cyber to Girls Who Code, opening up a different after-school activity such as First NC. And so our hope is to have ambassadors in every county across our state through this program so that we can continue to not only brand computer science, but open up opportunities for students to get involved as well. This is the flyer that will be disseminated to all middle schools and high schools. In honor of National Computer Science Month and Computer Science Week, we wanted to make sure that we appeal to what it is that students are doing. And one thing that we know is they have that computational device in their hand, their smartphones. So these 9 ambassadors as well have already started looking at how can we bring hashtags IMCS to all of those 8 regions. And just with using their networks to get the word out, we have published over 15 blogs. We have done over 7 podcasts, and we are affecting in every school, almost 50 different counties in those counties that are directly impacted by the 9 ambassadors. So we're very, very excited and proud of that work. And this is just the start. We want our second iteration to feature teachers, both male and female, and then students like the ones that you saw today who are thinking and leading to solve real world problems here in North Carolina. As we move forward with this work, implementation coming in 2020, 2021, as well as developing the curricula for kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, we really would like for the state board to consider local LEA accountability plans for implementation. We know that it's going to take human capital as well as fiscal resources in order to have a scalable and sustainable system of computer science. However, we have early adopters who are already doing this work. We would like for those early adopters to serve as prototype districts so that we can open those schools and open that conversation for other districts. We have Hope County, Charlotte Meck. I spent the day at Charlotte Meck yesterday. They're doing some very innovative things, as well as Winston-Salem Forsyth, and receive support from our department here at DPI in order to continue that work. We would ask that CS regional support teams meet with those LEAs during next school year to guide the district, provide concrete exemplars, because we really want teachers to be able to walk away and saying, this is what it's going to look like in the classroom, and this is how I can tweak it and differentiate it to meet the students' needs. And we want to help connect those districts that may be struggling, those districts that haven't even thought about computer science yet, to some external stakeholders that can make this implementation process smooth and seamless. We want to continue our ongoing CS Discoveries and CS Principles PD through the Friday Institute for Teachers. That has been going very, very well, and it truly is helping middle and high school teachers think differently and collaboratively about how they can continue computer science instruction in their classroom. And last but not least, the accountability plan would include having hashtag IMCS ambassadors for gender and equity to be trained in each district to support those efforts within their particular ecosystem. So that's our initiative and our update, and I'll open it up for questions.
Do we have any questions for Dr. Hemphill? Yeah, go ahead.
Wonderful job, and students, awesome work. Y'all are gonna have to time me on this comment because I am very excited about the work Dr. Hemphill is bringing, and very happy. I was a assistant coach with First Lego League, and I used the Lego education in my class. And I have to talk to you guys very quickly about the power of this in your classroom. It transformed me as a teacher. And I go around and I talk about the 2 ways on a micro and a macro scale. On a micro, in Dr. Houston's words, these are strategies that engage our minds. This is what you're going to remember from this board meeting, playing with these Legos. And think about the power of when these Legos are delivering our content standards. So we don't build robots to build robots in my classroom, but we build it to do math investigations or literacy. And so it brings that content, our standards from DPI to life on that micro level. On a macro level, you want to talk about equity and equity at work. This is the future. And so if we want to make sure that this does not fall along traditional lines of equity, we have to be proactive and design a system statewide that buys into this program so that our students of color, our English language learners, our students from rural backgrounds, and our girls are equipped with these skills when they graduate to take these jobs. And if not, it is going to hurt our students from zip codes that don't promote these skills. And so my ask, this is not Dr. Hemphill approved, is that the state board is intentional about thinking about ways to fund this, because this is going to take a shift in how teachers think. And teachers are excited. They come up to me when I speak as Teacher of the Year, and they are hungry for this. But EPPs do not have programs in place to graduate students. And when I talk to EPPs, they say, well, we're not learning this. Okay, so how are we going to learn this? So we have to be intentional, and it's going to take funding for instructional coaching to have this mind shift across the state.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Then I will wrap up again with another moment of personal privilege. I couldn't be any more excited, Dr. Hemphill, about anything we're doing in education than what's going on right here. Knowing that, one, we are doing everything to meet a real need that is in our society right now, in our communities, and some 30,000 jobs that sit open right now in our state alone, waiting for young people to fill them, and our pipeline's not there. And so we are doing everything, I think, right now the right way, but we have to do everything we can to supercharge it, right? And I know you agree with that, and I agree with all your comments. I don't think that the funding is the problem. I think it's us getting together as a body and working with the General Assembly to make sure that we're staying on track. And I think that one of the most impactful things that when we were going around doing the standards and meeting in different companies, we had a meeting in SAS, and Dr. Hemphill, you'll probably remember this, but one of the young men that was there was an executive, a black man that was an executive at SAS, and I would imagine he's probably in his early 30s. And he said, you know, in the community that I grew up in, he said, most of the students in my community would not even know a company like SAS even exists, much less jobs like I have. And that really just kind of gives me chills even talking about it now. It's like, that was an eye-opener to me to go, we have a bigger job than just kind of rolling out computer science and saying, oh, well, here it is. All of us around this table have an opportunity to reach out to the people that we know that are in these fields, that are influencers, and making an impact on their community and getting them engaged from the outside to help teach and train and be mentors to these young people about the future that exists. And within the next 10 years, about 70 to 75% of all jobs in our country, maybe around the world, will have some form of computer science related to them. And so if we don't tackle this quickly and do it the right way, then we're going to be far behind. But here's what I do know. I know we have the best team in the country working on this, led by Dr. Hemphill and her associates, folks like the Friday Institute. And because of that team, we're going to be successful doing it. So I'm excited about that. So thank you for everything you're doing, and thank you to the board for bearing with a long presentation here, but I think it's impactful for the future of our kids.
Thank you so much.
Very much so. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. We'll now break for lunch and resume at 1:30.
Great. That was deep. You need to do that.
When they come back, I have to wipe it.
That's good stuff.
Well done. That was great.
Standard. Mary present
Funding.
Oh, yeah.
Behind what she does.
She's a rock star.
See the progress we've made and how much has actually been done in a short period of time. It really is impressive.
She wouldn't know how to give a flat presentation.
Oh, yeah. She really wouldn't.
Well, surely. I mean, this stuff is not cheap.
Good.
Well, I mean, no, I don't think it's clear what as a board, what action we should take.
Right.
So how do we? That's your committee.
Thank you. Really good.
Oh, right.
Worked for me. I'm blaming you for that now.
I gotta use those engineering skills and troubleshoot it.
I'm kidding. The design was flawless. How are you?
Tired.
Are you tired? I left here yesterday too. By now, I have to stay here.
Yeah, see, that's you have to learn doing that. I didn't have that lesson. It's a lot of ripping and running, man. It's just pretty demanding stuff right now. I'm just trying to get to next week.
I talked to Katie.
Yeah. Last day of class. That's true.
Our youngest daughter's going back to math.
What's she?
taking it slow. I'm a little over halfway finished with it. It is. No, people don't have any idea now. Everything else.
Katie, I just wanted, I know there's a beginning drop off thought that you wanted to share with you. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate that. Thank you. This is my bag right here.
Have a great lunch.
I'm happy to jump in. Let me grab my card.
Don't mind the food.
Oh my gosh, I'm like, oh my god, I love this stuff.
I can't tell you how many times I have to explain that.
All of them.
So you have to, it's only going to help us.
Exactly.
Oh, are you presenting? Okay. I'll give you friendly smiles.
Oh my gosh.
Over the top. Here's where we're at. I'm gonna ask him to check in, have a conversation. In addition to me and Alan.
Oh, yeah.
It's reverted to Mars.
Great time.
Because it's unclear. That's
That's what I was thinking about this morning on the way.
part of the message. I need help.
Good to see you.
All right, sir. Take care. Thank you, ma'am.
We're all gonna do it.
That's okay.
It breaks my heart.
That's okay. I've never actually told you to do this.
This is surprising. No, you said something. Cheers. I see him. Let's see. He's such a. Until he does his thing.
I was like, okay, well.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, when it's done. Okay. So, that's true, and that's all over the board.
Great opportunity.
I think
You think it's interesting? Based on his
Total credibility.
There's no city bus to take. You know, my first job, I rode the city bus from across Durham.
Wow.
They don't have.
Okay, so Dave Machado really to make sure
That's one of those issues. This guy was trying to estimate so they can get away with it.
That's right. This is our teacher of the year over here. This is your first shot. He's gonna draw a picture. And then, yeah, we got the pin.
I had my notes in.
Okay.
I think about